This is what wealth means to me. My definition. I thought about this long and hard. The freedom to choose to spend my time doing what I want to do, not what I have to do. I've alluded to the fact that over the years, I started off my career as a marketer working for a large multinational organisation. That lasted a few years and I knew something was wrong. And I somehow fell into this profession of financial advice to doctors, over 30 years ago. And I took advice from mentors, and I realised that if I was going to be working, it would be good to be building an asset at the same time as earning an income. So after some advice and after some really good training and education, I built my own business and then built and sold chunks of that business along the way. And now I'm at a point where, in my life, I'm very grateful and thankful and lucky to a degree to be doing what I want to do, not what I have to do. And what my life looks like on a daily basis is that I get into the office around about 9:30. I've taken the kids to school because I want to spend as much time with them as I possibly can every day. I work through to about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then I leave, go pick up the kids from school because again I want to spend as much time with them as because I do this on weekends, not every weekend, but once a month I'm doing this. And so I try and have built, and I'm lucky enough to be able to do this, some real work-life balance. And part of that is because I earn decent money, but also because I've built businesses that I've sold along the way and had big chunks of capital payout enter my asset position along the way. And so I'm pretty financially comfortable and independent, and I do what I want to do. I appreciate the salary and the income that I earn. I have 15-year-old twins. I'm 58 years old. I'm going to be working for a long time because they have needs, and I want to develop an intergenerational platform for them and their children and so on. So I'm still focused on earning money, don't get me wrong, but I don't have to do what I don't want to do. And I love doing what I do. And last year was an absolute nightmare for me. I appreciated being home. I enjoyed that, and I appreciated the ability to get fit and healthy, and I've lost 15 kilos in the last 12 months, which is fantastic, but I need to keep doing that. Already I've been here for a weekend, and I think I've put on 2 or 3 kilos by eating the food that we've had out there and the drinks and so on. So it is good to have more flexibility around time, but I love what I do, and I've achieved that because I've always been focused on this. And my philosophy, and you'll learn why in a moment, why this has been really important to me, was that I'm not going to compromise on this. I don't believe in, yes, you've got to work hard to get to a certain point first before you can start to, build freedom into your life. But I think you need to start with the end in mind. And at any point in your life, don't compromise on what's really important. Because before you know it, you're developing patterns, and it's hard to break out of. And the problem with doctors is, to get to where you are in life, you have had to, and either innately or at some point, you've made the decision that I need to delay gratification. And that's a really good thing because you can't get into medicine, you can't get into the training program you want, you can't pass that, you can't set up your practices and start to become successful unless you focus on, and are very, very, single point focused on that specific goal and the next one and the next one. But life is happening along the way. And if that becomes a pattern and your life becomes one of success means work, then before you know it, you forget this stuff. And it becomes something vague in the back of your mind, and what success is earning money and working. And it's not just medicine. I have people very close in my family who I just, I can't understand. They work. I'll tell you, no one here will know who I'm talking about, so it's okay. I have a brother-in-law, and I tell my sister maybe once a month to divorce him. He's a really lovely guy, but he works every single day. He doesn't get home till before 10 o'clock at night every single day. He works every Saturday. Sometimes he'll work all day Saturday. He'll come home, he'll have dinner with the family and go back to the office and work till 2 o'clock in the morning. He doesn't need to do this. He's got more money than God. But he does this because it's become a pattern and that's all he knows and that's what he does. And they never go on holidays because going on holidays means you spend money and it means you're not earning money. Mind you, most doctors I know feel that way as well. Add to the fact that their practices are not businesses, real businesses, and if they're not in the practice, they're not earning money, and they're concerned about their referrers finding other people to refer to when they're not there. So most, and I've known thousands of doctors over the years that I've been doing this work, and the great majority of them never take any more than 2 consecutive weeks off at a time. That's not living, as far as I'm concerned. That's living, and you should focus on that, remember that, and build a business life, a professional life, a financial and personal life that continues to focus on this. So, what are the common themes of the truly wealthy? How do you achieve this? It's true, it still continues to be true that there's a greater demand for your services than supply of them. There's a greater demand for your services than supply of them. That is changing, but it's still the case in most medical specialties. And so even if you don't actively go about building a business and financial life that helps to achieve this, you will earn good money. And even if you waste a lot of that money, even if you're not efficient with how you apply that money to wealth creation strategies that ultimately allow for this kind of lifestyle, even if you lose a lot of money, some of it will stick. And by the sheer nature of the fact that, well, you can always turn the tap on and work a bit harder, or you'll do well. All of you will do well, and many of you who have been doing this for a while, I know are financially successful. But there's a difference between financially successful and being wealthy in the way that you've defined wealth over here. What's the point of having lots of money if in order to achieve it, you have to sacrifice on this stuff? It means you've got to work incredibly long, ridiculous hours. So much so that you need to wear a name tag home at night so that your family remember your name. You can't go on holidays, or if you do, it's very quickly in and out. You don't have the flexibility of being able to practice the medicine you want to. You're not able to work on projects that you choose, whether it be woodworking or painting or pro bono work or even teaching. You know, many doctors that I meet love the idea of getting to a point in their knowledge of their particular profession such that they can relay that and pass that on to others and teach. But don't do it because it doesn't earn enough money. So wouldn't it be great if your business life, your financial life provided you with the income that you needed to be able to have that kind of flexibility so you spend your time doing what you want to do? So these are the themes of the some themes of the truly wealthy people in terms of how you've defined wealth over here. Can somebody tell me, whilst these are all relevant, which are the 2 characteristics that absolutely guarantee, if you're focused on them, will achieve this kind of life? There's 2 I'm looking for up here that are more relevant than any others.
Goals.
Sorry?
Goals.
Goals? Yeah, that's a good one. Anything else?
Stay married in time.
Stay married, absolutely. Yeah, that's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to cost you a lot of money, and it's going to cost you a lot of emotional distress if you don't. And we all know, it's a fact, that the relationship breakup rate for medical practitioners is way above what it is for the average population. And that's to do with the fact that you're simply not there in the relationship. What else? Come on. Anybody?
Good advisors.
Good advisors, yes. Anything else? These are all relevant. They're all relevant. But who would say, what are the 2 most important? Anything different to the ones we've heard so far?
The asset base to create a consistent.
Well, an asset base, wouldn't that be great if we were all born with an asset base, if we were all James Packer and we just enter? Yeah, absolutely. But we're not all, that's luck more than anything.
Strong financial knowledge.
Strong financial knowledge? Sure. Sure, the more we know, the better decisions we make. Look, they're all relevant. You know what? Look, you're right. You're right to a degree. The common wisdom is that if you take big risks, you get great returns. And we always hear about the positive side of taking risks. We very rarely hear about the people who took great risks and lost lots of money. I've taken risks and lost lots of money. Yeah, I'll tell you about that later. Okay, I'll tell you the answer. The answer is, and you've already told me, defined goals and good advisors. Absolutely every day of the week. If you know what you're aiming for, if you know what you're trying to achieve, if you've actually articulated this in detail, what does it look like when I've made it? I'm going to ask you to reach into your kits in a moment. Hopefully you've all got it. And we're going to go through this process of identifying our goals, what we're trying to achieve. But define goals and good advisors every day of the week. These two together, you'll get there. You'll get there efficiently, effectively. It's not to say you won't make money by simply, whatever comes into your mind, throwing money here, throwing money there, trying to do this. Some of that will work, some of that will stick. But we need to be efficient with respect to achieving this so that we're doing it without compromising too much on our quality of life now. Hello, welcome. So, what are the 6 steps to achieving this? Goal setting. Absolutely got to set goals. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. I know lots and lots of very wealthy doctors, but their model for wealthy. By wealthy I mean lots of money, lots of houses, investments, big investment portfolios. But to achieve that, they have had to compromise on this. And so really, in my mind, they're not wealthy at all. They're people that are in their, late 50s and still working 6 days a week, working very long hours, doing more than just the clinical, managing the practices, doing the books, doing the financial, working no time to indulge passions, no time for family, no time for holidays, lots of money. Why? Because they didn't really set goals. They didn't find their advisor. I can't stress enough how important this is. Can you make money without a financial advisor, without a wealth advisor, without a wealth coach? Can you build assets? Can you convert income into income-earning assets? Of course you can. But not with the same degree of efficiency, not with the same degree of, efficiency is the right word. What I mean by that is that you should focus your time, your energy on doing what you do, what you're specialists at. You need to have a vision for the kind of practice that you want, how you want to serve your patients, how you're going to establish a point of differentiation, how you're going to remain relevant in an age of disruption in healthcare. And we've touched on that just briefly. We're building a curriculum around change, disruption, innovation in healthcare, and we'll let you know when that's ready. And hopefully you'll all want to come to that. But you need to focus on the medicine and how your business model delivers on your promise to the community that you've set to serve beyond the traditional needs of patients or lack of understanding of what their patients' needs are into a more holistic approach around addressing the transformation in empowerment that patients have. But when it comes to managing your financial affairs, yes, you need enough knowledge to have a seat at the table. You need enough information and knowledge and understanding such that your relationship with your advisor is a collaborative one. But your advisor is the specialist. Your advisor is the specialist in converting income to assets. And protecting your income and your ability to earn it through risk management measures. Managing risks, we all have to manage risks. I keep talking about this. There are people in the room who will benefit more from their risk management measures than their wealth creation and business building measures because stuff happens. We'll talk about that further today. Budgeting and cash flow management, really important. If we don't measure things, we don't know when to change them and adjust them to continue to ensure that we're being efficient with how we're spending money, how we're spending resources, how our practices work and so on. So budgeting and cash flow management is crucial. Debt management's important. There are the two most expensive things, actually, the three most expensive things in your life will be your children. Depending on how well you marry, perhaps your spouse will be very expensive. I'm married to an interior designer. You have no idea. Very expensive lifestyle. Anyway, because our house has to be a showroom, and every few months we're moving things, buying new things. Anyway, but really what I'm getting at in terms of debt management is tax and interest on loans. So the role of a really good financial advisor and the way to achieve true wealth is to minimize the cost of what we call bad debt, debt on assets that don't produce income and where the interest is non-tax deductible. And there are strategies that good advisors and accountants in concert will put in place for you to convert bad debt to good debt. And then there's the wealth building strategies. How do we apply our investable income into strategies that will help us build assets, such that we get to a point where the income from those assets are providing for our lifestyle sooner rather than later? And certainly you want to get there by retirement, but hey, wouldn't it be great if you got there way before then, so that you're still young and healthy and active enough to enjoy it and spend time with, again, with your loved ones before they're sick of you. And then estate planning, really important that we consider that, and for everyone's a little bit different here. I've talked to doctors who have said, all I'm interested in is, by the time I die, I want to have spent every cent I've earned and enjoyed it. And then there's others who say, I'm really interested in building a platform for intergenerational wealth. And then there's some who are so interested in that they sacrifice their lifestyle now. And I think that's crazy. But there's a happy balance, and we need to know how do we build our legal instruments to ensure that our wishes are met from beyond the grave, and how do we build our financial instruments such that we deliver the benefits of our hard work to our beneficiaries without losing too much tax along the way. And there's ways to do that. So let's talk about risks, just briefly. I want to tell you a personal story. I love this quote from John Lennon. It's not a quote, it's part of a song. Life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans. Really important. I want to tell you that managing risks is personal. I want to tell you the story of Emmanuel Macaronis. Some of you have been to our courses before, have heard this, and I apologise for telling you it again. But if you've got a good story and it's a personal story, I think you should tell it, and this is a good personal story, and I'm going to tell it. This is my dad. He came to Australia at the age of 1. He was born in the island that our family's from in Greece called Kalymnos. Kalymnos is in the Dodecanese group of islands. The most well-known of those is Rhodes. Some of you may have heard or even been there. And it's a beautiful place, unspoilt, magnificent. But he was part of that sort of, diaspora of Greeks and other, Southern Europeans and Europeans in general that came into Australia in the 1930s. And late 30s, early 40s. So he grew up here. He came here at the age of 1. He grew up in the obligatory Greek milk bar in Enmore, right next door to the Enmore Theatre. It was one of those beautiful sort of Art Deco cafes. It was called the Enmore Cafe. Oh no, the Niagara Cafe. And they had this sort of always had an American feeling to them. Anyway, he was very smart, very bright, but he didn't have the opportunity for a tertiary education. School captain back in the days where it was unheard of for a non-white Anglo-Saxon to achieve, but he didn't get the opportunity past high school. He had to sort of work in the cafe, and then he got an apprenticeship and became a fitter and turner back when that was a profession before mechanisation, and that wasn't going to hold his entrepreneurial spirit. And before you know it, my dad bought an Ampol service station in Dolphin Street, Coogee. And that Ampol service station back in the late 50s morphed into a tow truck driving business, and then he vertically integrated into a mechanic shop, and then before you know it, my dad became the first Datsun dealer in Australia in the 1970s. And he was so successful as a car dealer from this little shop that then he moved from that and built his own big premises in Kensington in the 1970s, and he sold the Datsun to every Greek in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. And he was a real entrepreneur, the best entrepreneur I've ever experienced in my life. He just had this knack of being able to communicate, and he said to me once, Steve, you can get whatever you want in life if you can help enough other people get what they want. And that's that. I keep referring to the marketing concept. That's the marketing concept. The marketing concept says we're not here to sell stuff, flog stuff to people that we want to sell that they don't want. Understand what they want, really understand and listen and give that to them. And that was his philosophy to business, and he did extremely well. He was also a person of the community. That's him, a bit later in life with a Greek fisherman's hat on, holding a sea sponge. The island that we come from was known as the island of the sponge fishermen. And before synthetics, it was a booming little sort of outpost in southern, southeastern sort of Greek Isles. Farming, and the mad, crazy people that lived there who would go diving with those big brass helmets and the big suits and so on back in the, all through the early stages of the 20th century. Anyway, my father, as robust and fit and strong as he was, as a great entrepreneur and a real people's person, and he was president of all these multicultural societies and so on back in the heyday of multiculturalism in Australia in the 1970s. Very successful. My mother and my sister and I wanted for nothing growing up. Lovely family holidays. Lived in a beautiful harbourfront home in Vaucluse. He was really, really successful at a very early age. But at the age of 43, he woke up with a sore belly, and 3 months later he had died of bowel cancer. Gone. I was 16, my sister was 13, my mother was barely 40, and his success was built on the entrepreneurial spirit and philosophy of, I've got this drive, I'm building, I'll borrow lots of money to help build this empire. He had car dealerships all over the place, and a property portfolio. And he was a bit of a budding property developer as well, and he was building. He was really driven, but at the same time, someone who really enjoyed life. And we were always going on holidays. Great fisherman, scuba diver. He did everything. He was a real shooter, a man's man, as we used to say in the day. Much to my mum's concern, because he was always away on trips with his dad, with his mates and so on. When I got old enough, I got invited along, but didn't get to experience many of those because he died prematurely. And when he did die, that entrepreneurial spirit obviously was no longer there, and the businesses and all the ventures that he had all collapsed. And lots of debt, and we lost everything. And particularly we lost everything because he considered himself to be one of the Greek immortals. Nothing was ever going to happen to him. He didn't have 1 cent of life insurance. We lost it all. And the worst thing about that was not that, we lost the fruits of his labour. The worst part of that experience, and I'll never forget it, was the look in his eyes when he knew that he wasn't going to survive this. It all happened very suddenly. And it was this look of abject failure. I failed you. My purpose was to work hard to build a platform for your success, and I didn't achieve it. And it took me a while, and it's going to sound horrible, and I don't know if others have experienced the same thing, but it took me a while to forgive him. Not because of the financial loss, but because of his lack of focus on the things that could go wrong and not having a plan B. And in a strange way, without realising it at the time, you know, I went out and worked, and my mum had to work, and we all sort of, and I was quite young and still at high school, but we realised that we all needed to pitch in. And in the end, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and we're doing really fine. My sister and I, my mother, we're all very well, and a lot of lessons that we learned have infused in our lives moving forward. But I learned a couple of really important things about that. First of all, that I need to have very regular colonoscopies, and I do. But I have a bit of a story about that as well, a delicate one, not an indelicate one. And I'll tell you about that in a little while. But also the things that I learned was that life is short and can be a lot shorter than we expect it to be. So have a plan B. You know, yes, we're climbing this mountain of success, whatever that means to you, and the summit is different to everybody, and I've got a fair idea of what that looks like for you here. But things can go wrong, and we need safety nets. And secondly, don't sacrifice too much now for some imagined future. So the reason that I don't go into work till 9:30 and I'm with the kids before they go to school, and I pick them up after school and I'm with them from then on, and they're getting now to an age where they don't want me around, but I don't care, I'm there. The reason I do all of that is because I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow, and I want them to have as much experience of me as possible. It's the reason why we go on lots of holidays. Now, the holidays have calmed down a little bit now that they're getting to an age where they need to be studying at school. But we would take 2-3 overseas holidays a year leading up to the last couple of years. At the expense of, I've got to say, my assets and my wealth portfolio. But wealth to me is this. And yes, I've got, you know, investments, and I'm doing quite well, and some have not done well, and some have done well. And I'll talk about the role of an advisor in doing that for you in a moment. But I learned that no matter what we do in life, and no matter where you go from here when you finish this course today, focus on this. Don't make this something that, I'll get to this someday. I'll get to this when I've achieved a certain level of financial success or business success. Build this into your life every day. That's my advice. Because you don't know how long you've got. So, let's plan for the risks, and we'll talk about that in quite a bit of detail. So, the role of a financial advisor, you need a financial advisor. I was my own financial advisor for most of my life because that was my job. And that was the biggest mistake I've ever made. Because like the mechanic that drives the jalopy and electrician that's got faulty wiring at home, the financial advisor tends to focus on their clients and not on themselves and their own needs. So I put things in place and didn't have time to monitor them. And it wasn't until I actually appointed a financial advisor to look after me that I realised, hey, now I've got someone that's monitoring this and I can focus on doing my job, and they can look after the other aspect of it. But their job and what their role is to provide experience, expertise and technical skills. That's a given. They need to be really good at their job. But they also need to be great educators and communicators of their knowledge. And if they're not, if you don't understand them, if you're meeting with them and kicking the tires to see if they're the right person, if they're not asking you these kinds of questions, if they're not asking you about the kind of life you want to live, then I would say they're approaching it from the wrong perspective. A good financial advisor will provide quality information, but they'll also be unbiased and provide tailored advice. You do not get financial advice from someone that works for a bank or an insurance company. What do you get from them? You get sold stuff. You want advice, you want strategy, you want coaching. And you can do all this, but the person that does all this does it inefficiently, does it not as effectively. The person that does this for themselves is not as responsive to changes, is not spending a good part of every day seeing what are the markets doing, making predictions, reading from opinion leaders and so on, and come up with strategies and proactively calling their clients and say, hey, we need to adjust this, we need to move that. Let's review things. There's been some changes in your life. Should we change your risk management and so on?